Welcome to the International Straight Talk video series on the big emerging markets of the 1990s and beyond. The international marketplace for high-quality American goods and services is changing rapidly, and along with these changes come major new opportunities for American business. The question is, where should American business focus its export efforts for the 1990s and beyond? The U.S. Department of Commerce has identified 10 foreign markets where the growth potential for U.S. business, and especially for American small and mid-sized business, is and will be enormous. These 10 big emerging markets are China, India, South Korea, Indonesia, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, Turkey, Poland, and South Africa. These 10 countries have fast-growing, increasingly affluent populations hungry for quality American products, technology, services, and know-how. Of course, it takes specialized skills and know-how to compete successfully in foreign markets, and we believe that no area holds greater potential competitive advantages for American business than time and effort spent mastering the critical people side of doing business internationally. That's why the International Small Business Development Center, William Drake & Associates, GTE, TU Electric, and Texas Instruments have joined together to sponsor this video series.
It's critical to understand that Koreans are different from all other Asians, and that they're very aware of this, and that they do business mainly with people who are also very aware of this. Over 1,000 years of living under the all-seeing, all-knowing presence of the Central Imperial Court has influenced Korean business thinking and behavior in ways that you, as a foreign business person, can gain real business advantage by understanding. Work to understand the why of what you experience in Korea, and don't forget the power of simply asking an interested question. In the last decade or so, the development of the Republic of Korea has been characterized by rapid economic, political, and social change. These changes have seen Korea emerge as a first-class world economic power, make substantial progress toward the establishment of a liberal democratic political system, while at the same time experiencing a profound transformation of traditional social behavior and relationships. Korea was first settled by clans of people who were part of a massive historical movement from the northwestern regions of Asia. The Han people of today's northern China were the first major group to settle out of this massive human movement, and the clans of Korea were the next major group. The Japanese were also part of this historical migration at the end of the Ice Age, but they kept going and settled on the mountainous islands off the Asian coast, perhaps because there was no more room on the mainland. As a result of this clan-based migration and their relative geographic isolation, Koreans today are largely racially and linguistically homogeneous, with no sizable minorities except for the Chinese. South Korea's major population centers are in the northwest area of Seoul, Incheon, and in the fertile southern plain, especially around Busan.
Just like the United States, there's a southern dialect, there's a northern dialect. Busan people have a very strange, I can't say strange, but they have a twang to their language. So you can actually tell the difference between a Busan person and a Seoul person. Seoul people are very brash, they talk fast, and sometimes they get offended that you have not understood them the first time. But that's a city person. You find that in New York. Busan, a little bit more easygoing, but they speak in a very southern twang.
The mountains in the central and eastern areas of the country are sparsely inhabited, with rugged, beautiful landscapes and dramatic views. South Korea has one of the world's highest population densities, much higher, for example, than India or Japan, while the geographically larger north has only about half as many people. Approximately 1 million Koreans live or have been born in the U.S., which is a major business opportunity for non-Korean Americans who want to explore this dramatically expanding Asian market.
We found that there are a lot of highly educated, well-connected Koreans right in our town. And so we linked up with one of them who is knowledgeable of people in high places within Korea, and that allowed us the ingress into that particular market through her connections, people that she knew. So it's not one of these situations where you have to go and spend lots of time and lots of money researching the market in country. You can probably find someone here in the States. Make sure it's someone who is known to someone who knows you. Don't get too many generations removed from the actual, I know someone who knows someone who knows someone. But you could find somebody right here, or as we did, right in our own backyard, who easily got us access into the Korean market.
The Korean language is visually distinctive, since it was invented, or rather designed, more than 500 years ago as an expression of the unique Korean spirit, character, culture, and worldview. Up until that point, Korean script had used borrowed Chinese characters, and for historical reasons it became vital for the Koreans to have a language, and therefore a core expression of culture which was uniquely their own. The spoken Korean language is remotely related to Japanese, Hungarian, Finnish, and Mongolian, but the written language is found nowhere else in the world. It's a profound cultural treasure for the Korean people, in much the same way that French is treasured by most French people and English by many English speakers, although in neither case was the language actually invented, like the Korean Hangul, as a unique expression of a people's character. The mythical king Tangun founded what has become Korea more than 2,000 years BC. By the 1st century AD, in Western terms, Korea was known everywhere in Asia as Chosun, or Land of the Morning Calm. Korea's historical development was divided into 3 long-lasting kingdoms named Silla, Goguryeo, and Pakche. The Silla kingdom ruled from the 7th through the 10th centuries AD, and is a period remembered by the Korean people in a way that the West remembers ancient Greece or perhaps England at the time of King Arthur. The Silla kingdom was succeeded by the Goryeo dynasty, from which the name Korea comes. This was a period of building cultural, civil, governmental, and social structures and institutions, and has been compared with the European Renaissance in some ways, in that its place in the historical cultural perspective of Koreans is much the same. The Yi dynasty succeeded the Goryeo in the late 14th century and lasted until the Japanese took Korea by force in 1910. This last was a dynasty which saw Korea emerge as a coherent cultural and social entity with a fully functioning educational system, economy, government and civil service system, and a fully functioning social infrastructure. The Yi dynasty also represents for many older Koreans the end of a golden age, because in 1910 the Japanese militarily occupied Korea and a ruthless, pervasive Japanese rule began which engaged in ethnic cleansing generations before the word was coined recently, and which lasted until the end of World War II. However, there's unanimous agreement among all Americans who know Korea and Koreans that neither this harsh occupation nor the Korean War, which followed in the 1950s, was able to destroy the identity, spirit, or energy of the Korean people.
Korean history is just as in-depth as Japan's, well, originating from China, of course. The Korean history is fairly quiet. I don't think it's the location of being in between China and Japan. I think it's more of our history being a little bit more quieter than, let's say, countries as Japan, China.
Korean social and business relationships are based on a complex system of age, rank, position, hometown, physical appearance, family influence, university connections, and other social and personal attributes. Foreigners like you and me don't really count in this system, and therefore you don't have to be concerned with recognizing any of the subtle cues which Koreans use to instantly rank themselves with any other Korean they meet. However, you can certainly do a few things to make your initial meetings with potential Korean business associates much more comfortable for everyone, and therefore much more effective for you.
You will see that the key decision maker reserves a lot of respect from the other employees and from the other companies. If you go into the meeting and everybody becomes quiet, that means that the person that is talking is probably the one that is making the decisions. You can look when you go into a meeting, the decision maker will be the first one to go in, and the second in command or the assistants will be coming behind him.
First of all, when most Koreans meet, they bow and exchange what look to us like ritualized greetings. In Seoul and in higher-level business circles throughout the country, a combination of a bow and a handshake is becoming increasingly common. The best approach for you, as an American, is to let your Korean counterparts initiate the greeting. You'll undoubtedly be offered a handshake, but do include a slight nod of your head at the same time as you shake your Korean associate's hand. This gesture has great significance, especially for older and more traditional Koreans, because it represents your acknowledgement of their culture's valued traditional greeting form, as well as an acknowledgement of their modernity in adapting the Western form of the handshake. Koreans exchange business cards immediately after greeting, so be prepared. And don't deal your cards out around a group of Koreans like a blackjack dealer. Take time to exchange cards with each person personally, beginning with the senior member of the group. And remember, if you don't know which Korean is the highest-ranking member of a group, group dynamics are going to provide you with a pretty good clue. Korean business cards ordinarily have name, title, organization, business address, and work and home phone and fax numbers written in Korean on one side and in English on the other. Your cards should have the same information. If you can't get them done in the U.S. before leaving, any business hotel concierge in Seoul can arrange to have it done for you. This is a must-do expense. Simply taking your U.S. cards to Korea is so counterproductive that you may as well not make the trip. Your card enables your Korean counterpart to instantly determine how he or she should react to you. This is critical, because until Koreans know where they stand in relation to any potentially significant person, they experience a high degree of inner tension. This seems strange to you, or compulsive, or too elaborate. Please keep in mind that you're dealing with people whose culture has been built on nearly 2,000 years of virtually uninterrupted imperial court experience, where even tiny differences in rank had potentially enormous implications, because inadvertent violation of even small prerogatives and privileges of a powerful person could mean death. Also keep in mind that as Americans, we also have our own greeting rituals. We just keep them very short, and we generally don't notice them. But if you want to know what it feels like to have an important greeting ritual ignored, just think back to the last time you stuck out your hand to greet someone and, for whatever reason, they ignored your handshake. Remember how you felt? Well, that's a relatively mild version of how a Korean will feel when someone potentially important to them fails to take the time or make the focus to go through the exchange of cards properly. So don't think of the card exchange or any of the other Korean traditional business practices